Spoken Labour. I haven't thought about flying for a long time. I haven't dreamed of that moment when I was alone above the clouds for a long time. I haven't dreamed of waking up in a room surrounded in blue and green grass for more years than I could dream of remembering. I haven't walked back into the past or scratched on the doors of my origins, where it all came from, since I held up that cape for the last time.
Return to Kent Town 10th Year Anniversary Edition is a revised version of Andy N's first poetry book. The book can be purchased from Amazon and it contains numerous additional material.
Spoken Labour.
Hi, it's Andy N from Spoken Label. Spoken Label was originally set up at the beginning of 2016, and records show it started off really as a one-off podcast chatting to writers, poets and artists. Over time, it became monthly, then weekly, and occasionally nowadays it goes on that to a more regular basis. To date, I've done over 330 sessions, and I'm always looking for new poets, writers, artists, singer-songwriters, general interesting creative people to come onto the podcast. You can find this on all the usual networks over Apple, iTunes, Spotify, Podbean, Podbay, and dozens of others. But it does have a central database of Spoken Label, which is all one word, .bandcamp.com. Obviously now, to help me with the running costs of this podcast, I'm always grateful for any kind of donation to assist me with it. You can either do the donation through the Bandcamp page by putting in a fee to download one of the free podcasts, or send it over to my PayPal to aen1mpo@yahoo.co.uk. My email address again is aen1mpo@yahoo.co.uk. Enjoy the podcast. Take care. Bye.
Spoken Labour. Okay, Amanda.
Okay.
What are we doing today?
I'm invading your podcast today.
Yeah. What podcast is this, Amanda?
It's Spoken Label.
Yeah, very rare. Amanda's in as a special guest host today as well. And this is rare nowadays. So if we had spell you've done bits for example, not regular. And we've got Amanda in today because when I bring Amanda in as a special guest host, we bring in hardcore guests. Not the sense of hardcore, special guests. If we're going about hardcore, this gentleman we've got with us today, I dread to think what he's going to say. So, because we've got the fantastic Phoenix Andrews with us. Now, I've known Phoenix for, 1998, is it?
Yeah, I think we've known each other for about 20, probably more than 25 years, actually.
Long time. Met you on the second year in university, which was, I reckon, 1999. Good.
99, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like...
I'd say 24 years, nearly 24 years.
Crazy. And I reckon you've known Phoenix for about 6 years, haven't you? So like I said to her, that's why I thought bringing Phoenix on, so I've done a long time today. It made sense to bring Amanda on because Phoenix has just forced out his debut novel. I'm not sure. If you're not on, if you're on the audio version, I'll just hear it. Book called Blood Cells. And Amanda, how would you sum up Blood Cells in one sentence?
Bloody.
One word. That's a good way of putting it. So. But anyway, listen, we're going to talk about that in plenty of depth today. Now, Phoenix, obviously, before we start, mate, you better introduce yourself to everyone. So, can you tell us all a little bit about yourself? I know you're currently Bognor Regis based. If people check on you, you've lived all over the place, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, I lived in Bognor Regis now, West Sussex, for 6-7 years now.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's been a long time. Time has flown. And before that, I was in Brighton, and I moved down to Brighton in the 90s for university in the mid 90s, and that's kind of been that was my base for over sort of 20 years. I went up north to where I was at uni with you, Andy, in Bolton. And I've also travelled around the world, lived around with different countries around the world, and yeah, I moved to Bognor for work. So it's a nice little town, Bognor. But yeah, I've always been a writer of some sorts. Not as prolific, if you like, as you guys. Because when my brain works, I'm always doing something a bit different. And so
you're one of these sort of people, and people check on your fans. Well, you're the sort of person where you're afterwards a restless creative. Like me and Amanda, we plot on books, don't we, or what project we're doing. You all often go from one extreme to the other. What you basically so.
Yeah. I mean, I've done all sorts of things. So yeah, I'm an artist, and I've enjoyed sort of all sorts of things. But this actually sort of honing in on having this idea for this book for years, and then just saying, do you know what, I'm going to sit down and just write it, and then a year later publishing it. It's just been phenomenal. I've not experienced anything quite like this before, like the process and everything, and yeah, really enjoyed it. And it's the first in what will hopefully be 5 books in the series with these characters. So yeah, I'm into the second one, writing the second one now. So yeah, it's been really, really good.
Yeah, now I don't want to go into too much in the book straight away, but I want to learn about. Is there any questions you want to ask Phoenix about the process of it, Amanda? Because you've done more novels than I've ever done. I've all managed.
Oh, it's been a while since I've done novels, so I think I've forgotten how to write them now.
Why don't I bother bringing you on then? Right? Well, no, seriously.
Just to look at you and make you look good and smile and nod.
All good with one, right? Because you know, there's a lot of sense I get of this one sometimes. But obviously, Phoenix said, we have to look at the process of the book itself, then, because at first I knew this, the same you, Amanda, a lot, wasn't it? When you rang me up, basically, I said, oh, I've nearly completed my debut novel. You hadn't told us about it. So, was it? Everybody did, apart from one or two. I hear you had a friend who helped you out with the bits, didn't you?
Well, I've only with the proofreading. I've had I had someone who my good friend Peter down here, because I needed. Yeah, I was kind of, I don't know, I was a bit scared to tell you guys that I was doing it, to be honest, because it's sort of, you know, I look up to you both as writers, and you've been doing writing, you know, and certainly Amanda, I mean, you've been doing horror writing and scary writing for years, and I was like, oh, this is my first one. So I kind of, I didn't tell you guys until I'd finished it, just in case it didn't pan out, you know. And as soon as it sort of did, I needed to find, because like 90,000 words, I needed someone to have the time to proofread it that could look at it subjectively, you know, and take themselves out. And I knew that my friend Peter, he's not into horror novels, and he's retired, so he's got more time. So yeah, I asked him to sort of proofread it for me, and then I had to get someone to proofread it again afterwards.
Wow.
He was good. He was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you know, but I don't know if you guys know, you know, you can never finish, can you? You're always tweaking. You have to it's so hard to step back and go, do you know what? It's done. It's really hard because it's like your baby, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. It's a thing from your first book as well. It's like I said, it's like, I've known you over the years to write bits and pieces, but certainly a 90,000 word novel, that was a case of, whoa, like that when you told me about that one. It was like,
never done anything.
Was it always going to be a novel, this, was it? Yeah.
It was, yeah, it was always going to be a novel because there's sort of, I tried to write my memoirs. Because I've done a lot of things. I've been involved in a lot of things. I've had a lot of adventures around the world and stuff. I've had a lot of things happen to me. So, you know, that have shaped me, same as anyone. Anyway, everybody's life is exceptional. But I sort of wanted to write my journals. And when I was starting to write my journals, I was like, okay, some of the stuff I've done is a bit weird and a bit sort of out of the ordinary. So I thought,
it isn't the word, Howard, you knowing you.
yeah. So I thought let's fictionalize it, and then it sort of went from there. And then suddenly there was this vampire in the mix, because I've sort of dealt most of my life with addiction and addictions of different kinds. So having someone like a vampire who also suffers with addiction and also exceptional old age, being like over 800 years old, his mental health he's depressed. His mental health sort of is affected. And it's kind of a nice sort of mirror, really, about sort of dealing with mental health and addiction. And the second book certainly goes into that a lot more with Adam.
I think we better tell people before we carry on the further, Andy, what the book is about, really, because we've dropped a couple of little hints so far. But okay, I want to obviously people know there's a vampire in the book. The book itself is about David. And when the book starts, he's obviously in prison itself, been quite able to serve out his sentence. Then we also get Adam as well, a man with a secret his own, because he's trying to help him out, basically. Realises he's in a lot of trouble. So, which character came first?
So, I had this really cool idea of like a conspiracy in the government. Because let's face it, probably are.
Amanda, do you want to answer that?
I don't know. I'm not in the government.
I mean, let's face it, once your mind goes down that rabbit hole, it never comes out, really, does it? It stays there forever. But so I had this sort of idea of shortage of blood on the NHS and the government.
Glorious. Go on. That's it.
Bit of Scarlet. And I just had this idea of using criminals, like taking criminals, killing them, and draining their blood, and then selling that blood back onto the NHS. Because as far as the government and the public are concerned, it solves two issues. One, criminals aren't, because there's like a big statistic of like reoffending. So then these people that don't have, that are, let's say, the lowest of the low, for the sake of the book, they won't go back, and when they're released, they won't reoffend because they're dead. And also that blood can then be used to fill a gap in the blood shortage on the NHS. So it's all very dark, but and also the government make money from it. They're selling that blood. So yeah, it's very dark. But that was kind of like weirdly the first idea I had, and so I needed to put someone in prison that can see all that, and putting a vampire straight in there. I thought, well, he can easily get out. He can, and plus he might drink the blood. he might have a bit of a feast. So
yeah, he's basically skimming off the profits, basically.
Exactly, skimming off the top.
Hang on, one we want because we're going to get dirty in this one. Yeah, it can make sense.
Yeah, I don't know if you used to watch Buffy when it was on, but I did feel like there were bits of it that felt a bit Buffy. I remember the scene where Sander, when Dracula comes into it, and he sort of goes under Dracula's spell, and he's going, blood is life, or so they say.
Yeah. I do. I mean, it wasn't my intention, but I used to love Buffy. I really liked Spike. I thought Spike was amazing because he's sort of that bad. Spike was that sort of baddie.
You used to fancy Spike, so that's the material, wasn't it? So.
Oh, he was. He's a handsome guy. And anyway. I thought he was British. It wasn't until I heard an interview of him that he's got like almost a West Virginian style American accent, hasn't he? I mean, what a great British accent this guy's got. And then you watch Torchwood. Have you seen Torchwood?
Yeah.
I think is he in Torchwood as well?
Yes, he was as another captain character, basically.
That's right. One of the times.
And they're meant to have done the spin-off audio venture of that captain character as well. So from Big Finish as well. I've not heard it. So, but
no.
I didn't watch it. But was he in that recent Sarah Michelle Gellar thing?
No, I don't know what that was about because he wasn't in there.
Yeah. There was the Sarah Gelatin of a horror series recently, and on all the promos of it, he was actually doing all the publicity shots for it. So fancy he wasn't in the series. So.
I think he attended like the opening thing of it, but I don't think he was actually in there.
So very interesting onto the book. So right, the question for you, obviously, is when the book was started. What made you want to set the book off in actual prison itself?
I mean, I like the idea of sort of trapped in a box, being trapped in the kind of bubble. It's kind of a metaphor as well for when in life we get trapped, and trying to find your way out of this sort of self-fulfilling prophecy, or this sort of, this sort of box or bubble we put ourselves in life. It can be really hard to get out and escape from. And when you escape from something, you're not are you really escaping? Or I'm trying to sort of use metaphors. It's not really like so. I mean, with David going into prison, he escapes from prison, but it's complete happenstance. It's a complete accident. It's a one-off thing that makes him escape. He's not like a super sleuth or anything. He's like a skinny, geeky IT guy that should never have been in prison in the first place, really. I mean, he did wrong. He hit a bouncer outside a nightclub that had already punched him, and completely regretted it. Unfortunately, the bouncer fell backwards and hit his head and went into a coma. One of those things that can happen to anybody. But because of that, they threw the book at him, and he was spending, a good sort of 18 months, couple of years in prison. And he had been there for a few months, watching things slowly unfold. And I knew someone that was in prison. They were in prison up north as well. So that in my head as well. I mean, I tried to fictionalize it, but at the same time, try and make it realistic as well. I watch a lot of dramas. I've seen a lot of the prison stuff. I mean, is it called Time or something? There's a recent one with Sean Bean that's just been about
Time.
It is Time, isn't it?
Yeah. So Stephen Graham. The second season that's on the way soon as well.
Is it? Because that was really good. And a lot of the time, when people sort of do dramas about prison, they either make it really nicey, or they make it...
Prisoner Cell Block H.
I don't think that was very nice.
No, it wasn't actually.
It wasn't very nice, no. Or Orange is the New Black as well, But yeah, to have like a British prison and everything, I thought that was really well done, really. So I guess that was kind of an inspiration as well.
Yeah, no, it's an excellent place book. I got for it for about 2 weeks, so that's good going for me. It took you a little longer, didn't it? Yeah, because most of the people, they should not be busy with work. They take it's a case of having to get time to sit down and do it. But yeah, I was really getting to and from work for about 2 weeks ago. So.
It's heavy.
Yeah.
For my weak little house.
Yeah, it went back down that book. But yeah, people are wondering. We've got the promo copy where the actual final version, I believe, is a bit lighter now, isn't it, Phoenix? I believe.
Not lighter, no. I mean, literally, you got the promo copy. You got one of the first copies, and it was then that I sort of realised that the original proofread wasn't 100%. So, and as a writer, as you again, because you guys know, as a writer, you miss things because you're in it, you're writing it. I was skimming over stuff, and then I was like, oh, hang on a minute, that little bit doesn't make sense. But there was like some names that I'd spell. I was doing spelling the name. There's an assassin in there called Cheyenne, and she's one of a group of assassins that are contract killers that are trying to quash the escape, if you like, or they're basically trying to find David. I don't want to say too much. I don't want to sort of spoil it too much. But
I don't give too much away. Yeah. What made you want to bring design? Obviously, as the book goes along, comes quite.
I was trying so hard not to mention her. I was trying so hard not to mention her. You just mentioned her.
She's got a role in the book, that's best way to put it.
Oh, absolutely. She's the main character. She's not there at the beginning, but she's a main character because Adam, basically, the whole premise is that in order to remain, undetected in this modern age. We got modern age where there's so much CCTV everywhere. Like every square meter of the planet has got some kind of CCTV, whether it's satellite or whatever, with all the cameras and ATMs and laptops and everything else, and smartphones. Certainly, it's really hard to go undetected in life. So, in order for him to stay hidden as much as he can, he employed this team of people to scour the internet and networking and newspapers and every social media to delete any footage of him, to create and write algorithms that source him, that can detect him and delete that. And David, and then this girl with pink hair called Zion or Z, she's they're the two main parts of this team. And unfortunately, she tries to help David, and in doing so, gets embroiled in this conspiracy as well. And she ends up being on the run. David's on the run. Adam goes into prison just as David's escaped from prison. So it's all hell breaks loose. But by going into prison when he does, Adam realizes that things are very dark, and this conspiracy goes way above the government to these supernatural, almost monsters, really, sort of beings. And it is very, very, it's much darker than he ever thought it was. And so he went in to rescue David, but he's actually, in a bit of trouble himself, because they want this to carry on. They want people to be killed and their blood being drained. Blood is sacred, blood is life, as Amanda said. Hopefully not. I didn't mean to rip that from Buffy. I didn't even know that was it. I can't remember that being in Buffy. But yeah.
The trouble is, you've got somebody that's a Buffy addict, and stuff she remembers about Buffy is incredible.
And Supernatural as well.
Oh, Supernatural as well, yeah. She's currently reading slightly off topic here, Phoenix. Do you want to tell Phoenix about the book you're reading at the moment? We're going to show them a book now. Nothing to do with you, but it's very good.
Well, you put me in the vampire mode, so I went on to read this, which is a new series in the Buffy series. But it's the next generation, so it's Willow's daughter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Hey, that's kind of cool. Is it good?
I'm about 70 pages in, but I'm enjoying it because they've got like a good mix of like new characters, but then they've got Willow in it, and they've got Oz and Spikes in it as well.
Oh, wow.
They've done 2, or was it 3 books now, is it?
2 that's out, and the 3rd one's coming out.
So, I don't know.
And the author, is it the original author as well? Is it? The Buffy series?
It's called Ken Dare Blake. I don't know who writes the other books.
No, because we only knew it as when it came out on the TV, didn't we? But I'm sure it must have come from novels, right? Buffy was originally books, was it?
I think it went on to books after. I don't think it was books before.
Oh, okay. Because it sort of had that feel about it, didn't it? Had a feel about it, like almost as if it was like adapted from sort of book, like the Twilight sort of series and stuff. So,
let's get back to your book, okay? Because we will digress. And people know me and Phoenix and Amanda as well. We digress lots.
We digress a lot, absolutely.
Now, I want to know next with the book, obviously. And I'm trying to keep away from the spoiler aspect of it. I suppose it doesn't give you too much away to say Brighton does feature in this book to some degree. What made you want to move the narrative at one point into Brighton?
I wanted it to end in Brighton. I don't know why. I wanted the book. I always had that in my head. It was always going to start in the north of England, and it was going to end in the south of England, and it was always going to end in Brighton. Yeah, I don't know at the time. I didn't know how it was going to end, because a lot of people they write like the synopsis, don't they? They write how each chapter is going to go and the formula. And that I didn't do that. I literally had the idea in my head. I wrote a few notes about some of the main characters, but they always went off piste. I mean,
they didn't behave themselves, basically, to say, don't you?
Yeah. Again, this is like I'm a fairly sort of new writer in this style. So again, sort of Amanda, you and Andy, now you're writing a novella, but
yeah,
Amanda,
well, I'm
Don't they come alive? These characters come alive.
I'm doing it I shouldn't be doing it, I know. So, like you are. I don't think you ever did that. I don't think you ever did the plotting way, Amanda, did you ever?
No, I just made it up as I went along.
Right. I like that. Don't you find? I prefer that. Because I end up it's almost like a film's going on in my head as I'm writing, and I have like a rough idea of where I want it to go, and then it just goes left, and I'm like, whoa, okay, I didn't expect that, and it's almost like madness sets in because these characters come alive in your head. Yeah. But it's like the second book. I mean, I'm on chapter 6 now, about sort of 8,000 words in, and already there's a surprise. There's going to be a big shock. I didn't see it coming. And it's like, hang on a minute, I'm the writer, right? Why didn't I see that coming? But it just, the way it flows. And it's really cool to do that. But certainly, going back to Brighton, I lived in Brighton for over 20 years and I love the town. It's really good. It's a great town. So or city really is it now. So I always was going to end there.
What point did you know this was going to be a series?
I would say probably about 2/3 of the way through. Originally, it was going to be a standalone book. And then I suddenly realized just how these characters were coming in. And I'm like, I can't kill these characters. or do I?
Well, speaking to this young lady here who has done series. I don't recall you giving your characters happy endings.
No, we were talking about this the other day, about killing characters, and I was mentioning like the first books I wrote, and I was going to kill a character, and then I put him in a coma, and then by the second book I was bored of him, so then I made him kill himself.
It's like that. It's I mean, like I've come to love these characters. You know, I've become very fond of them, and they're very understated still at the moment. And there's so much going on, and even like the baddie antagonists, isn't it? The baddies. I'm
not a novelist.
It's like writer speak, isn't it? So protagonist is the goodies and the antagonist are the baddies. Yeah. Well, these the antagonists. You know, I mean, like Hashan, who's like this demon kind of character, serpent demon. A fire shaitan, I think it is. I think that's kind of Islam or Muslim. I hope I said that right. And it means serpent demon or snake demon. You know, I really like these different characters. So it's got to be when I was about 2/3 of the way through, I thought, it's got to be more than one book because, you know, I can't just end, can't just stop. So
you can, but you regret it.
No, I mean the second book is called Blood Oaths. They're all going to have blood in the title.
Can I ask you then, since you're going to reveal that, then people are wondering, they will see it's rather gory cover on the front of the book. People look at the cover, obviously. Tell us about how the cover came together. So I know you did the cover yourself, didn't you, in the book?
Yeah, I designed it myself. Yeah, I love a bit of art. I love sort of designing, and the title Blood Cells obviously has like 3 different meanings. You've got cell, obviously the prison cell. You've got blood cells themselves, the plasma, the blood cells, and then you've also got cells as a play on words to sell something because we're selling the blood back to the NHS. So in
both of you work really well. That very effective.
Yeah, there was a kind of like that just came into my head, and so I wanted to create something that, basically just sort of, it's quite obvious when you look at the book, because I sort of market it as crime fiction, but actually, like my mum, when my mother read it, bless her, she loves still Peter James and, you know,
always got that.
And I didn't have the heart to tell her that she's going to get a bit scared. And she read it, and she said 2 things. She said, firstly, couldn't put it down, absolutely brilliant. She said, second thing, you've scared the hell out of me forever. Thank you very much for that.
Thank you very much, my son. Yeah, and stuff like that. So yeah. Well,
Peter, who proofread it, he's not a horror person either, and so he actually said, I had a couple of nightmares. I'm not going to lie, I had a couple of nightmares. He said, but I'm all right. And I'm like, okay. And when I gave him a copy of the book, obviously, a signed copy because he had proofread it for me. So I gave him that, and he sort of went, "Thank you," and then just put the book to one side, and it's like as if to say, "Just going to move on," because the book cover does kind of all of the terror that you and the suspense that you see in that book cover kind of happens, and we don't know who that character is on the front of the book. It could be a number of these characters, and I like that, and I'm not gonna say who that character is because it's quite nice.
Keep everyone in suspense. Make the audience work, as I always say, definitely. With
I've just designed the second book cover, which I can send to you guys.
I can attach. I can show people when we release the podcast straight away for you, straight away with it. Before everyone's my questions, is there anything you want to ask Phoenix?
There was a part in it, without giving anything away, where one of the bad guys refers to his dark side as Dark Passenger. And I was wondering if that was from Dexter, because that's the only time I've ever heard it referred to as that.
Yeah, it is. It is. The book sort of like has a lot of references in there, and it gives like an insight into the stuff that I like. And when I was sort of editing, I was like, well, I can take all that out. But then I thought, you know what? No, because it's quite nice to have like those little what people call them Easter eggs, don't you? Yeah. And it's sort of these little Easter eggs. And yes, you're very right. I mean, there's two references you found. Obviously, you've got like the Buffy and then you've got Dexter. But yeah, because I just love that phrase, Dark Passenger, because we all have one. We've all got one.
I agree. Did you watch the Dexter maxi series that came on last year?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, the sequel one.
Yeah.
I didn't mind it actually. I thought it was all right. I thought it was okay. It's had mixed reviews, hasn't it?
I can't comment.
I didn't like the ending.
No.
That's why I haven't seen the original series. So that's why I couldn't comment. I watched it, Amanda. I quite liked it, but yeah, she's disappointed in the ending. So.
Isn't it the same though? It's always the same. It's like I don't know if because I like Luther. I quite like Luther with Idris Elba.
You like Luther, or you like the series? Anyway, now we're going to move on.
But with Luther, like I was waiting. There's a character in Luther in the series called Alice. I don't know. Have you guys seen Luther? No, really good. Amanda, you'll love it. It's very dark. It is wonderfully dark.
Well, she's looking at me now. She wants to have to go find the first series.
I don't know what you mean. I like flowers and puppies and kittens.
Right, well, now we're going about gore. I might as well drop an F-bomb now.
I mean, as long as the flowers, pumpkins, and kittens are bathed in blood, it's not an issue, is it? I mean, to be honest. But no, but Luther, the film that came out recently on again, like with Dexter, it was like the sequel. When the character that you want to be in it isn't, like the side characters aren't in it, and you want them to be in it, you expect them to be in it. It's kind of, you get a bit disappointed, and you sometimes it's hard to get away from that. And I found like Dexter with the ending. I need to watch it again. It was so long. I watched it as soon as it came out, so I can't remember too much about it. Michael C. Hall's really good though, isn't he? He is good as Dexter.
Oh, he's brilliant. He was very, very good. Now he did a series, and I'm completely off tangent now. He did a series. It's set in Manchester fairly recently. He did.
Are you talking about because he did 6 Feet Under or something?
That's correct. There was an adaptation on Netflix for Harlan Ellison, and he was playing the lead role in it. And it was going in all these bars in the central mansion. I've been in half of those. I knew most of them. I've got one more question for you before we go into this hard sell. Obviously, we've talked all about horror today. Is there any other genres you'd like to write novels in?
Yeah, I love a good crime novel, and I love the post-apocalyptic stuff as well. Very much so. Also a bit of Terry Pratchett. I do like a little bit of that dry sort of dark sort of comedy or sarcastic sort of comedy. So kind of across the board really. But horror, I do like a good horror.
Stuff like, do you envisage it now? Obviously, it's obviously the first book's out. You've told already you're about 8,000 words into the second book. Do you envisage these books coming out probably yearly, every other year, maybe?
I hope so. I mean, my aim, the first book was, I wouldn't say easy to write, but I'm not going to say it was really difficult either, because I had all this idea in my head. It was like a coiled spring, and it was like once I opened that box, it was like boom. It was wonderful. This second one, obviously, there's an expectation now for people that have read the first one, so it's a little trickier to write. But I am hoping to finish this one and have it out by the end of this year. I haven't got very long of it. I've only got 6 months. I would love for it to be out by Christmas if I can, and then then the third one, it'll be like hopefully yearly. But I know that there's like an anticipation for the second, because it ends with, it is kind of like the second book has already started by the time you finish the second one. So and these new characters are coming in, and we're introduced to those in the epilogue, and we need to it needs to get going. So but I'm also recording the book for Audible at the moment as well.
I was wondering if you do that, because people know you in past life, in better way for it. You have done audio with people before in the past. Fantastic reading voice. So I was going to ask what was going to happen with that.
Yeah, I'm quite lucky because I've done music in the past, and I still dabble a bit, but I just haven't had time to do any music recently. But I bought all the equipment and studio mics, and I've done a big setup for music, and because of that, it's kind of given me a nice sort of training to be able to edit audio properly, rather than just a mic and just done. And Andy, in the past, you've helped me out a bit with things like that as well, with the work that we've done, the projects we've done together.
As people know, obviously, Amanda and me do a project together called Nandy in a Bottle, and the first EP came out earlier in the year. I've gone and found the masters recently on the session we did in New Phoenix, 2017, I think it was, and it sounded excellent. So
was that in your living room? Is that
living room?
Is that when we were in the living room?
Yes, it was. So the plan is basically for that. We're going to be like that, coming out to the EP probably next week or two.
That would be kind of fun to listen to that again, because that was quite a fun night, wasn't it? We sort of, Amanda, it was sort of like, wasn't there some ghost? There was some ghostly, some sort of eerie stuff, wasn't there?
Yeah, it was about, I think it's called I'm Here to Save You, and it's about me going into a house to save Andy, who's locked in the room, and I get trapped in the room myself, and then I hear screams from the attic. I can't do anything because I've already been captured by it.
That's the one, Phoenix, yeah. So you'll hear that in a minute, buddy, so sounds really good. I've put the original masters on the actual EP, people are wondering, so you can hear the original, and I've gone and remixed it very slightly, so to make it even more easy. Right, anyway, listen, mate, we'll wrap up this point anyway. So
if I can just sort of say then, just to end that, obviously the book's available on Amazon, both a paperback and as an ebook. It's in the next couple of days. It's going on to Apple Books as well.
Oh, well done.
I'm just sorting that out now. So and if you go sort of at Phoenix Andrews on TikTok, then that's where I'll sort of post. I'll post when the link of when that's out. I've had a press release go out recently from a private sort of PR company. So it's gone to the BBC, and it's also gone. It's going to be in some newspapers in France. Weirdly, soon they're doing a review of the book. And the New York Times and the Statesman in America are I'm just waiting for them to come back to me. But so it hopefully will sort of generate some more sales, which would be great.
Brilliant. Now, so if people want to wrap up, I always ask people at the end of it. You answered one of the questions already. Is if people want to find out more about you or get in contact with you, how are they best doing it?
Yeah, as I say, if you go onto TikTok and you at Phoenix Andrews, you'll see me. You can sort of look at my stuff there, and I sort of tried to do that. I'm on Facebook. I try and think what my Facebook, because I'm self-published. I sort of obviously set up PPA Publishing Limited, and I think at PP and I think it's either PP Andrews or Phoenix Andrews. But what I'll do is I'll send over the link to my Facebook page, which I use sort of professionally.
Yeah, perfect. Sounds good to me, that, buddy. Well, good luck with the book. Let us know when book number 2's out, and you're always welcome here again anyway, that, my friend, definitely. So
I need to come up, don't I? I need to come up to Manchester soon.
Yes, we do. Yes, you do.
Too long.
We'll talk about that off microphone in a minute anyway. So
right.
Listen, buddy, it's been a pleasure, mate. So
take care.
Thank you, Amanda. Okay. And thank you, Phoenix. Hang around, buddy. We'll see you in 2 shakes of the ass. Spoken Label.
Blood Cells by Phoenix Andrews. David hadn't slept for 3 nights in a row. Fear kept him awake. Fear that if he closed his eyes, even for an hour, tiredness would grip him and he wouldn't be able to wake up again. But more than that, since arriving at HMP Stafford, more and more of his fellow inmates had been disappearing. "Lock up!" came the ritual sound of the officers as cell doors banged shut. Then "lights out!" would next echo around the block. And that was it for some, for too many recently. They just weren't there the following morning when the cells were unlocked for breakfast. No one said a thing. No one dared ask the question, where the hell have they gone? No one wanted to know the answer. Of course, over the relatively short time he had been banged up here at HMP Stafford, David had seen inmates, people he had come to think of as friends, in here anyway, finish their sentences and leave or get transferred to another prison. But this was always during the day, and they all knew it was coming. No, disappearing at night. Now that was something else entirely, and it scared the hell out of David. But damn, he was tired. Routines were so important in prison. If anything, to break up other, more mind-numbing routines such as work detail. As well as having the meal sheet each week, inmates also received a spends sheet, with items they could purchase with earnings saved up from work and education. For the majority of people in here, tobacco was the most bought item. It was used as currency, as much for personal use. But for David, chocolate and other food items made his and Billy's week. David was first sent to a more general sort of employment in the main warehouse-type building on site. His job entailed screwing in the housing on brake lights you see on those trailer light boards for caravans and, well, trailers. Yeah, that was it. 4 hours each day. Ushered into the warehouse in single file as if entering a slaughterhouse. David had to collect his screwdriver from a large tool board, all of which had a number on them, and then go to the same bench as a pile of trailer boards awaited to be assembled. People chatted and joked, pranks were pulled, and even a few inmates that were clearly lower down on the evolutionary ladder would start on each other before being pulled apart and led away onto different areas of the job, or in some more serious cases where tools were involved, straight to segregation. David would have gone insane if it hadn't been for Billy telling him of the possibility of joining the A-team. This was a team of only a handful of inmates whose job it was to clean the gum and glue off old PVC window frames ready for recycling. Now, at first, David thought of this as an even worse job than screwing down bloody trailer board lights day in, day out. But then Billy told him of the camaraderie between the inmates in this area, of the officer that brought in biscuits sometimes and made the group cups of tea. Well, it seemed wonderful to David as Billy told of it, and it was. Within 2 days of working on this detail, the officer had indeed brought in some rich tea biscuits for everyone, and the group could stop working for 20 minutes or so while having a break with a brew. The one thing Billy didn't mention, however, was the way in which every couple of days an inmate would leave and another would join the fold. Again, no questions were asked. No one had appeared to have done anything wrong, for not one inmate assigned to this team would want to jeopardize their role. But it seemed like some kind of system was happening. Apart from Billy, David didn't see any of these A-lister inmates outside of the work detail. But during these 4 hours, they were like a small family, a secret club. Each day they were led to a separate building where they were given a scraper by the officer, and they got to work scraping the sealant and glue off the white plastic frame pieces. David thought of it as quite meditative, really. Then something strange happened. The following morning, they left their cell as normal after breakfast and made their way down the 2 flights of stairs to wait in line for work duty, only to be taken to the main warehouse, to the main work detail again. Both David and Billy were utterly crushed and confused, wondering what they had done wrong. Was it they had somehow taken advantage of the privileges given to them? But if so, why did the officer allow it? David was put back in the same spot on the same bench as before at the far side of the warehouse, back to screwing in the brake lights, whilst Billy was put on another bench with some rather rough-looking guys. David couldn't see what they had got Billy to do, but he certainly didn't look very happy. Why would he? They both soon came to realise that life was about giving and then having it taken away in prison. It was a way of control, of power, and nothing hammered this home more than the numerous disappearances happening of late. The threat of David or Billy being next, the ominous air of possibility that this may be their last night, left Billy staring at his ceiling with a sense of dread, his hyperactivity starting to give him the shakes and cramps. It must have been almost early morning when he heard a key being inserted into the lock of his cell. It turned so quietly, making the faintest of clicks as the door was unlocked. Strange, as during the day, when there was an incident, the locks on these doors were incredibly loud and clunky, but not this time. This time it sounded like that mechanism inside a grandfather clock turning the cogs to make a midnight chime. But no chime this time. Just the doors slowly opening, the dim yellow lights of the corridor flooding into the cell. Billy was still fast asleep, and there was barely a sound from outside apart from an intermittent beeping from somewhere below. 3 shadows moved seamlessly into the room, blocking out the yellow glow momentarily and instead bringing in a chill that filled the space around them. David had stopped breathing, gripped with a fear that encased his heart and stomach. He didn't move and couldn't think straight. Was it the lack of sleep? The chemical injection of caffeine and sugar running through his veins? Or just the fact that there was an overwhelming sense of dread that something sinister had just entered the cell? They seemed to bring all of the shadows of the space around them together, merge with the night, and yet the light of the moon didn't seem to touch them. And they were tall and hooded, like a trio of grim reapers, ready to take souls from this world. Shit, David thought in near delirium. Is that why they're here? Is Billy dead? Have they come to take him? In a blind panic, he seemed to come quickly to his senses and shout out, "Oi! What's the problem here, guys?" He had no idea if they were indeed men or women, or human in fact. "We haven't done anything." Unfortunately for David, he should have remained quiet, for they had only initially come for Billy. But now both inmates were to be taken from this cell. With reflexes defying logic, one of the shadows rushed forward, grabbing David and throwing him out of the bunk and across the small cell. He rebounded off the wall and landed heavily on the table, scattering books and drink-making items onto the floor. He was momentarily stunned and unable to move as the other two shadows leant over the body of Billy. Why wasn't he moving or screaming or something? David thought. But that was all he had time to think of. A black, gloved hand clasped over his mouth and nose. All thoughts slowly disappeared, and David drifted into a sea of blackness. The three shadows silently carried the still forms of David and Billy out of the cell, across the corridor and through a door at the end. Just as quietly as opening their cell, a key gently clicked, and the only noises left were a snoring sound across the way and the intermittent beeping from somewhere below.
Spoken Label.